John, what was the question you asked before the show? This was a really good question. I think we need to.
I was just wondering if you're writing more or less during like the lockdown. Like, has your inspiration, motivation, whatever, creativity gone up or down? Because for me, I've just been like, I feel like there's nothing else to think about.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I think for me, initially, I was paralyzed. I was just like, oh my God, what is happening? The last thing I want to do is to make up a sweet story for kids. Like, I would say all of March and well into April, nothing was happening. And I didn't have a book that was on deadline, and it's due at the end of the year. It's a novel, so I've got plenty of time. I had like a couple of work for hire projects, but those are pretty easy. You just kind of, follow the general plot line and bang them out. But boy, it really threw me for a loop for quite a while. Because I don't know about you, but when you're a creative person, you kind of need to have your life established and normal so that your creativity can be chaotic instead of the other way around.
Yes. Yeah. It's like the routine really helps you just go on autopilot. So, the fun part can do its thing. And it was like our brains, it's like we were isolated, shelter in place, and so was our brain. It was like,
Yeah.
I can't get out of this, just hamster on a wheel feeling.
I know. Yeah. It was like somebody took my brain and put it in a jar over by the door.
So you're in the middle of a novel?
Yes, I am.
I mean, how long have you been writing a novel?
This is the second book in a 2-book deal with Scholastic. So the first book I turned in, I want to say February, so just before things hit.
Oh, wow.
And so then all I had to do was a little bit of editing on that, and that was easy. But then I had to start this new novel. And so for a while, I'm just, brain is mush.
Was it moments where, because
Because
like I heard, like you just got to sit down and just start writing. Was it just like over and over writing a lot and then just deleting it and like being like, nope, never mind, basically crinkling up?
It was more like a creative constipation. Nothing would come. It was hard to find the voice, and then finally, it got to be the new normal, or at least this uncertainty was like clearly going to go on for quite a while, and so I just said, well, I'll just do it a word at a time, and just started doing it, and then I got up like the last 2-3 months. I really hit my stride, and now I'm actually fairly close to the end. I'm probably 3 chapters away from the end.
Nice.
Oh, wow. What, for someone that's never written a novel, what's like a good time frame to do that? I know it's all subjective to, is a year usually what they give you for like a deadline for that?
Often,
Yeah.
sometimes 9 months, something like that. Because the thing with a novel, your first draft, you're just telling yourself the story.
Right.
You're trying to figure out what the story is.
Right.
And you get to the end of it and you go, okay, so this idea I had in the beginning, that didn't follow through. Something fell apart. But this new idea that came up, this is strong. Now, if I can take that and insert some of that back into these early chapters, so you generally have to revise a number of times.
I always would worry, like if I ever like in my head was like, I'm going to start writing a novel, and I do the first draft, I'm always worried that I'd go back and find something that needed to be adjusted and going down like a deep dark path and never being able to like pull it back, and like having all these branches now that I just can't, and I'm like, it's too much. I'll never be able to do it. I feel like George R.R. Martin.
Yeah, it would be
Too many
frustrating.
storylines.
That seems like it takes a lot of discipline to do that for a year. That's a commitment.
And that's the thing about being a professional writer that I didn't get before I was one, is you have to treat it like a job.
Right.
I mean, Elmore Leonard, the great thriller writer, he would just show up at work 9 a.m. at his computer, work until 5, just like he was punching a clock. My best time for writing is in the afternoon. So I'll write from lunch until dinner. So maybe 5 hours, something like that.
Do you sleep in late, Bruce? I picture you as a guy that wakes up at 6 and goes for like 6-mile walks every morning. Am I right?
You're strangely enough, you're fairly close. I used to love sleeping late, and then about maybe 10 years ago, after all these years of doing author visits where I have to wake up at the crack of dawn to go talk to the kids,
Oh yeah.
my body shifted. And now I wake up with the sun. And I'm like, go back to sleep, buddy. Go to sleep. And then if my body does go back to sleep, the dog comes in and wakes me up. So I'm just adjusted to it now.
I see you performed some kind of virtual concert with your band. How did that work out? Because it looked like you were on an actual stage. Was there?
Well, it was actually a place called the Carriage Museum, where they have all these old carriages from horse and buggy days. And it's got all the, I don't know if you saw it, there's this kind of this Old West facade.
Yeah.
So it's like you're walking down the street of a show like Gunsmoke or something like that. And
nice.
The saloon, the apothecary, all this stuff. And so they put us in there and in this warehouse where the carriages were, and there were 10 of us in the band because we have 9 people and we had a gal sitting in on congas. So they spread us so we were socially distant. We covered about 50 feet. And I swear, if you wanted to signal the horns it was time to come in, you had to send them a text. Hey, guys.
Really? It was that spread apart? Because it looked like it was a lot of fun, though.
We all missed performing. And even though we didn't have a real audience that we could see, there were a few people who were associated with the fiesta who were kind of behind the cameras. And some of them would get up and dance. And so that helped.
Yeah, sometimes it only takes like 1 or 2 people dancing for your stuff, and it's like, all right, I'm good. That's all I really. As long as 1 or 2 people are enjoying it, I'll keep going. Exactly. It's like when you're telling jokes, Clark. It's like if one person in the room is laughing, I'll keep going.
It's fine.
Yeah. It's like an energy exchange that happens.
Yeah. Right. That's all it takes.
How many people were in the room total?
You mean aside from us?
Yeah.
I'd say maybe 15.
That's impressive.
But they were all
I couldn't even get 15 people to. If we weren't in quarantine, that's pretty good anyway.
Yeah.
If somebody came in without a mask, do you stop the music and shame them, or how does that work?
There were people who were kind of controlling the event, and they were playing the heavies. They were the bouncers. That
was cool though. I want to bring up Shark Week. We're in the midst of Shark Week. What's going on this year with Clark the Shark? Is there anything you can give us? Because I know the last time you were on the show, there were some things in the works, but unfortunately, the world came to a stop. Is there anything brewing with Clark the Shark? You can let
There is. There are a few things this week, and then there's a new book coming out in the fall. So for this week, I did a storytelling this afternoon with Hickleby's books up in San Jose.
Home of the Sharks.
Yeah, so it was really sweet.
Right.
Yeah, so we just did it on Zoom, and a bunch of kids tuned in, and I did a storytelling, and just because I'm that kind of guy, I sang the Baby Shark song with them so that their parents would go crazy.
Oh, no way. The best song ever. I don't know if John's ever heard that song.
Oh, yeah. No, I've never heard that song. I don't have a 2.5-year-old who sings it all the time.
Yeah, it's like one of the meanest earworms you can ever imagine.
It's like it's a small world on steroids.
Bruce Hale singing the Baby Shark song, the author of Clark the Shark. That's the equivalent of like hearing the title of the movie in the movie, right? Like, when you watch a movie, you're watching like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and they're like, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. You're like, there it is. It's the title of the movie. That would be, that's something to say.
Yeah, it was great fun. And of course, I substituted Clark the Shark in there for one of the verses.
Of course.
You have to. And then on Thursday, I've got 2 virtual visits like that. One of them with a Blue Willow bookshop in Houston. And that's early in the morning, my time. It's going to be 8 o'clock. So us California guys, that's pretty early.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's an ambitious start time.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good that you're doing this stuff and you're staying proactive and, connecting with your fans and your readers and things like that.
And the kids are getting some sort of education because obviously the people in charge of this country can't figure that out.
Right. That's what you need to do. Go to Bruce's website. You can learn about the different kinds of hats. I did not know.
There you go.
About the difference between a fedora and what is it, a trilby?
A trilby, yeah. One of my
trilby.
Mistaken all these years. Yeah, I'd never even heard of it. But that's
a trilby.
Trilby is like a fedora, but it's got a very short brim.
And what is the name of the hat you're wearing right now?
They call it a driving cap usually.
You're a hat aficionado, though. You know
I
your
am.
stuff.
I probably have about 30 hats.
I can't rock a hat. I just look weird. I look like you don't want your kids to come near me with a hat on. But you guys can rock the hats. It looks good.
It helps to have the right shaped head, I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a hair thing. See, I don't have a lot of hair, so wearing it fits just fine.
Right. Like 9 times out of 10, I'm having a bad hair day, so I just wear a lot of hats.
There you go.
I'm like, I don't know what to do up here, and no, I don't. They fit, so whatever. And my wife is like, I like it when you wear them backwards. You look cool. I'm like, well, I'm not, but
You do look cool with the hat on backwards too.
Yeah. We like to foster the illusion that we're cool.
So. Right. It's just part of the costume.
Whatever it takes.
Exactly.
Bruce, you mentioned the Clark the Shark books coming out in the fall.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess this was penned. You wrote this before the quarantine.
I did. Yeah. That was written last fall, and it always takes the illustrator a good 4 or 5 months to illustrate it. So,
okay.
So that was all in the can before quarantine hit. And that one is called Clark the Shark Gets a Pet.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Clark the Shark gets a pet.
So he gets a dogfish who's even more undisciplined than he is and has to learn how to kind of treat a pet and take care of it.
You heard it here first. Clark the
Bruce,
Shark.
You draw it, or no, you write it and then a guy draws it?
Yeah. Although I am a cartoonist, I don't illustrate most of my picture books. So this very talented guy, Guy Francis, actually is his name. He does the illustrations for Clark the Shark.
Has he ever sent you something and you're like, no, that's not what's happening in this scene. Like you're reading it wrong or something.
No, question. Actually, he's really good.
Wow, that's awesome.
He often comes up with little twists and little jokes in the art that I hadn't even thought of, which is great.
I bet you that is similar to how it happens with like Looney Tunes. Like if you watch Bugs Bunny, it's like originally written for children, and then like either the writer or the illustrator, whatever comes in and is like, yo, I could like help out the parents suffering through this and like put a little joke here and there. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
I love those Warner Brothers cartoons because they were written at 2 levels. You'd have these adult puns that the kids wouldn't get, and then you'd have like the slapstick stuff which the kids would love.
They say Bugs Bunny was the original anti-hero because he's like the original like wise ass.
Exactly.
It makes sense.
Oh yeah.
It's like watching Shrek. It's written for adults, really.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Exactly. With a few fart jokes thrown in cool. Kids.
Yeah. You just throw them out. Just give them something to nibble on.
That's cool. So he'll find a part of your story and be like, I could draw this up here in the corner, and that could reference something that they say 2 pages down.
Exactly. Or like he'll put in like there'll be a comic book that Clark was reading, and he'll put a really clever title on it or something like that.
A little Easter,
kind of like a play on the whole world that we create.
Oh.
In the universe, the Clark the Shark universe.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the canon. When you're writing a book, Bruce, as you are now, this novel, do you allude to things being experienced in the world today, like with quarantine or masks, or do you not allude that in the mindset that it's going to go away and we'll go back to normal? I'm just curious, like as an artist, how you approach that, because I think with films and stuff, when they start picking up again, we're going to see like the mask stuff. But then there's some people that are like, it's temporary, it's going away. Like, how do you approach that?
I don't feel like with kids, at least with the stuff I'm writing so far, that it's my job to comment on that. And it would actually, the seriousness of the pandemic is such that it would pull the story out of shape. So
makes sense.
Yeah. So like in the story I'm writing now, which is basically a story about a kid with poor impulse control whose parents force him to join a Boy Scouts type organization to straighten him up, and they get in a disaster in the wilderness. It's funnier than it sounds, actually. But
is it a microcosm?
No, I'm interested.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I was like, that sounds good.
That would been totally have pulled out of shape if I had suddenly there was a pandemic, they had to wear masks, they couldn't go hiking, that sort of.
Oh, right.
Clark
yeah.
won't be going to school today. Why?
Like,
He
Yeah,
got his
right.
temperature checked.
Show Clark with a mask on. I mean,
Waiting on his test results. Because Kevin Smith is writing Mallrats 2, and he said that COVID, it's during a time of COVID. Like, he's like, characters have masks. Like, the coronavirus is a character in
I
the
believe
story
it.
because they're in a mall. I mean,
yeah.
you kind
Well,
of.
Yeah.
there are
That's
instances
interesting.
where you could make it work. And if I was writing something that was more dystopian, like more of a young adult kind of thing, I could totally use that. Or I could draw a parallel to it and, do something that reminds people of the whole coronavirus thing, but without being exactly the same. But so far, I haven't been drawn
Like
to it.
money.
I like to make jokes. I like to make things funny.
Right. Lighten the mood.
Exactly.
You have some great jokes on the website too. It's a character, I forget her name, but
Natalie Attired.
she's adorable too. One of the
Yes.
jokes was, what do you get when you eat onions with what was it? Onions. I gotta pull these up. The punchline was tear gas. Do you remember what that was?
Oh, vaguely.
Onions and
Yeah, yeah,
beans.
Yeah, onions and beans, and it's tear gas. And there's all these like one-liner jokes that I love, and I've loved since I was a kid. Like, why didn't the elephant cross the road? So he wouldn't get confused with a chicken. Things like that.
Yeah.
The zombie that ate the bear's parts, Goldilocks, like things like that.
Yeah.
Those are just some of the jokes at the top of my head. But I love that kind of humor, like the simple. And as a
Like, why
kid,
was the hot dog man fired? Because he walked down the street with his wiener wagon.
But the reason I bring it up, it's not because I executed, the opening of that joke really badly. It was because as a kid, as like a little kid, I remember all these like, little one-liner corny jokes, like, what's the Count Dracula's favorite building, the Vampire State Building. But the
Yeah.
fact that you have that online now, which wasn't a thing when I was a kid, everywhere, is really cool because kids will remember that stuff and visit that stuff again. Because you can say it to your friends, you can say it to a teacher, you're not going to get in trouble. So that's a really cool concept, and I don't think I've seen that anywhere else. People trying to do that.
It's fun to do. And some schools I've visited, when they want to prepare the kids, sometimes they'll hold a joke contest. And so we'll pick some of the best jokes, and they'll get like a free book or something like that, or have lunch with me or something. So it's really a fun thing. And you find like so many of these kids, they know like the jokes that we knew when we were kids, but there's always some new ones cropping up.
Yeah.
Like I heard a good third grader joke. Why are a gorilla's nostrils so big?
Why is that?
Because his fingers are so big.
Perfect.
That's good.
Picking the nose.
Yeah.
Like,
so like first
why-
time I
Pretty good,
heard that, I'm like, oh my God.
Why
you did-
why does Waldo only wear stripes?
I don't know why.
He didn't want to be spotted.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So you do
Dad
this
joke.
with every, live visit that you do. You start off, you like kind of break the ice a little bit with some jokes.
Oh yeah. I always tell a bunch of bad jokes in my presentations.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, your jokes are good though, and I feel like when I was going through your site, I know you did a lot of visits, but I didn't realize how many visits you've done. You've been like all over the world. You've been to Africa,
I
I think
have.
South
Really?
America.
Yeah.
What is?
What was your favorite? I'm sorry, Clark.
No. Well,
There's-
yeah. What
there
were your
are
favorites?
well, there were so many great trips. I mean, I have to say one of the best was when I went to New Delhi, and the school was so well off. They flew me and another author in, put us up for a week in this 5-star hotel, took us out to dinner every night in these amazing restaurants, and then
What?
and after this week of hanging with these kids and having a great time, they said, "Oh, we have a little treat for you. We're sending you off to the Taj Mahal." And
No
so
way.
they paid for the whole thing. We went off to the Taj Mahal. We got the grand tour at dawn, and came
This
back.
was a school that did this?
This was a very well-heeled international school.
I
Wow.
still would be stunned if any American school would do that.
I know. It was.
You know,
it
that
was-
seems like crazy.
Yeah, that was like the Cadillac of
amazing.
their visits.
That's amazing, and that's a world wonder too. To be able to be flown there to speak,
Oh.
and then them set you up. It would be like coming to, the United States or something like that, being like, oh, to cap off, this trip, we're sending to Hawaii, or you're gonna go to New York or something like that. If you've
Carve
never
your
been
face in Mount Rushmore.
Yeah,
here,
exactly.
that's amazing. That's really cool though. And listeners, check out Bruce Hale's website. If you really go through your catalog, Bruce, you've written a lot of books.
Oh yeah.
It's amazing how much you write, and it's not dissimilar to legendary children's books. Like, I'm just gonna throw this out there, like the Bernstein Bears or something like that Beverly Cleary did, where there's such a huge catalog.
Mhm.
How many of these babies do you try to bump out a year? Because it seems like there's a process that you're
Yeah,
using
there
that's
definitely
working.
is. I tend to, like you, I have a short attention span. So I tend to bounce back and forth between shorter, like picture books and easy readers, and then I'll want to stretch out and I'll do a novel. So I could write anywhere from 2 to 5 books in a year, depending on what kind of books they are. But
Right.
usually no
A
more
lot.
than one novel in a year, because those take a lot of time.
Are your two novels like connected? What
No.
was the first one about?
They're-
Okay, they're not
They're
connected.
completely different. The first one is called Switched, and it's about a boy and a dog who hate each other. And then the dog is basically the sister's dog.
Oh yeah.
She goes off to a semester abroad. The boy has to take care of the dog. They get into a magical accident, and their souls switch bodies.
Right. I think you told us about this last time we
Yeah,
were on like a
I
Freaky
told you.
Friday.
I was in the middle of writing it.
And now what's this new one about?
So then the new one, the working title is Super Troop, and that's the one that I mentioned earlier, where it's
Super Troop.
the kid who's forced to be in a Boy Scout-like troop, Boy Rangers, and of course, like right after he joins, they integrate it by bringing in girls, which totally changes the dynamic.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. So
That's
it's really
interesting.
fun. Very different characters as well. But I like the variety.
So you have to be done this. The deadline's the end of the year, so we're like early summer next year. Would people expect to see this?
Yeah, probably, or maybe even winter. I'm not sure. The publication schedules have really gotten thrown off by the whole COVID thing. Like Switched was supposed to come out this fall, and they pushed it back to the coming spring.
Oh.
So, yeah, because it's so hard. I mean, you can't do anything other than Zoom visits, and in-person visits are out of the question.
Bruce, are you in charge of, like, say the book comes out and there's a misprint? Because I've been reading, I'll be reading a book and there's a misprint, like an obvious misprint, like a misspelling, or the grammar's wrong.
Yeah, or
it's
they
like
put the wrong word in.
Yeah. Who is like ultimately responsible for that?
Well, it's kind of a team effort. There is a proofreader. Like you have several lines of it. First, there's your editor at the publishing house. Then there's kind of a proofreader who gets all the nitty gritty stuff. So like usually I'll do 1 to 2 drafts of revisions with the editor. Then she'll pass it over to the proofreader, and the proofreader will get all the little nitty gritty. Oh, your comma's in the wrong place.
Colloquialisms.
Yeah. And
I don't even know how to say that word.
I don't either.
I know.
That's pretty
impressive. Good. Clearly, you don't have COVID brain.
No, I just used to use them a lot, and I remember this English teacher at Penn State would write it all over my papers.
Colloquialism?
Yeah, like very, and
Oh, is that
like
what that
words
is?
that aren't necessary.
Yeah. Yeah, they can be brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah,
there's
so
like
it's a process. I mean, ultimately, I'm responsible because it's my name's on the book.
Right.
But
just
there's
mean,
at
like-
least 3 or 4 of us looking at it.
Like, what if you hand something in and it's spelled correctly, and then the book comes out and there's a word in there spelled incorrectly, and you're like, yo, but this is what I gave you. Somebody messed up.
Yeah, who do you
along the
fire for
line.
that, Bruce?
Yeah. I give them a very stern talking to.
Is that just a sorry?
Yeah, pretty much that.
One
Yeah.
out of
And-
1,000 people will catch it. Get over it.
Have you ever made an error that slipped past the editor and made it into a book? Probably not, right? You're pretty buttoned up with that stuff.
Yeah, no, I think I'm pretty good. I haven't really noticed any big ones. There was most of my errors have been caught in the editing stage. Like,
And
it had been like
did,
so long since I played football, and I had Chet Gecko playing football, and I did some move in there that was not usual for like little kids football, and somebody called me on it. Like, hey, that's not quite right.
It's not quite. It's like he did a layup into the end zone.
Yeah, exactly.
he slammed dunk into the goal post.
Right.
Yeah.
But couldn't you also make
hit
these
a
like
home run.
celebrities?
Yeah.
If there was ever a mistake, you'd be like, well, it's not real life. This is the world of Czech Echo. That's what they do.
Wait.
That's how they, you can always like roll with that.
That's
The best title of any book I've seen is one of Chet Gecko, and that is From Russia with Lunch.
yes.
And it's the coolest cover in the world. He's like a little James Bond spy-looking lizard guy. He's a gecko. And I love all the wordplay and the puns you use in those. I'm a big James Bond fan. I'm a big, like adventure spy fan kind of thing. And you use a lot of these cool puns and titles and just really creative, really good. It's a really cool series.
Oh yeah, the cover is cool. It's like
And the edit. Yeah, you saw the. Yeah, it's cool. Like,
kind
you
of
just
looks like Raphael in the first Ninja Turtles movie. Remember when he would put the trench coat on and the hat and walk through the streets?
I wish Bruce Hale were an author when I was a kid, because the stuff we had to, at least I remember reading, was crap. I would love to have a Clark the Shark. Chet
Yeah,
Gecko.
I know. There was nothing like that.
It was like Beverly Cleary, and those were old
Clifford.
then. I grew up in the 80s, and they're like, hey, you're reading Ramona. I'm like, this was written in like 67. Like, come on. Like, I'm 8 years old, and I know this book is 20 years old. The reference, the dad's smoking in there.
Yeah.
I'm a first grader. What are you doing? And even then, that was like, come on. There was no safe.
It was like
not
a gap.
safe, but it was like Bernstein Bears, and you grew out of them very quickly.
Right.
And like
That's
Christopher
not the case
books.
anymore.
That was it.
There's so much great children's literature out there for the whole range. And I mean, you even have books like that picture book that has no pictures in it. The picture book with no pictures. It's hilarious. I think B.J. Novak wrote that one.
Yeah, I've heard
Ryan
about that.
Howard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ryan Howard.
I mean,
Maybe
there's just like all kinds of wild stuff out there, and there's just a tremendous range. Some really great stuff being created.
It's really cool. You've been to a lot of these conferences too. How is that community? Does everyone know each other? Is it like Hollywood, where you're like, oh, that's so and so? Is it like a close, tight knit, cliche, clicky kind of thing? Like, how does that work?
In some ways, yes.
It is.
But in other ways, we don't necessarily know what each other look like because we know each other's work. And so, like, I might bump into somebody at a conference and be talking with them, and they say their name, and I'm like, that name's familiar. And then they mention the title of one of their books, and I'm like, oh, you wrote that. Oh, that's so great.
Have you ever sat down with somebody for an hour, not know who they were when they left? You're like, hey, who was that? They're like, I don't know. It was a homeless guy. I don't know who you were talking to. You thought it was like an the editing process and from when a book is conceptualized as an idea to the time you can buy it in a store is a very long and arduous process.
Yeah.
And many times a book is thrown aside or doesn't make the cut. We here put together a list of some of Bruce Hale's books that did not make print.
Oh,
would you like to hear these, Bruce?
Research.
Would you like to hear these?
Yeah, please. I'd love to hear.
These aren't actually real, too, listeners. Bruce had no idea about this bit. So, no. So here are some Bruce Hale books that didn't make print. John, are you ready for some of these?
Yes, please.
Lay it on us.
Class Pets. Fuzzy sets off a metal detector before first period. A Monster Town Mystery. Wuhan, China. The scariest place on Earth. I can see why that might be. Chet Gecko. Dial W for wire fraud.
Hey.
School for Spies. The Caper of the Russian Collusion. It's a little offensive. Moki the Gecko. How to have fun while self-quarantining after failing a temperature check. It's Hawaiian, so
maybe just a little too long, maybe.
Yeah, a little. I think the title probably
That's
did
probably why that one didn't hit.
Oh,
You know, they just like, no, I'm sorry, that title is not going to work.
Couldn't get past the title.
I'm sticking to the title, damn it.
I'm sticking. The Underwear series.
This is the title.
Yeah. This is it. The Underwear series. The thrill of not wearing a mask in public. Could be a little offensive. And finally, Clark the Shark. You wear your fin, I'll wear mine.
Hey.
So I can see why some of those might not have made the cut. But,
yeah.
No,
Hey, even well-published authors still strike out once in a while.
not you, Bruce Hale. You don't strike out ever.
Thank you.
Those aren't real, by the way. But I just wanted to thank you for coming on the show again. This was, been so gracious of you to do this.
All right, gentlemen.
Always a pleasure. Sir. Thank you, sir.
Care.
Be well.
Bruce
safe.
Hale, everybody.
Stay safe. Wash your hands. Wear a mask.
Stay safe. Oh yeah, don't ride on the railroad tracks. What? Stay safe on Groundhog Day. I love your microphone too, by the way. The black with the.
It's the same as yours. Yours is just silver.
Yeah, but yours is cooler.
And it's the same arm.
Yours is a little.
You could just spray paint it.
Scranton Wilkes-Barre.
Scranton Wilkes-Barre.
I
think that's how you say it.
Yeah, I switched gears this week. It's cool to have Bruce on. I'm glad he came on. I always feel like I leave stuff on the table when he comes on. Like I wanted to ask him more, and I just kind of, I don't know.
Is he like time limited? Like, does he give you like a limit, like where he's like, I can only do like a half hour?
No, that's the thing. I should probably talk to him about that because I don't want to. Yeah. He might want to go for 3 hours, or he might have 10 minutes. I should, probably iron out those data. I switched gears radically this week. I've been rewatching The Office, and just watching it a lot.
Yeah, I can't stop.